coordinator at the Nantucket Athenaeum. Tonight joining us is Reverend Vernon Walker with the Yes on 2 Ranked Choice Voting Initiative. And tonight he will be speaking to you with a presentation. And with that, I will open the floor to Reverend Walker.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here, for taking some time out of your schedules to be present for this important conversation. I'm elephant happy and peacock proud that you are here. You could have been anywhere or anybody's Zoom doing anything right now, but you decided to spend a little time with us. I certainly do appreciate that. And once again, I just can't express my enthusiasm for you all being here, and I'm really hippopotamus glad that you all were here. Now we've got some business to unpack, and we've got some things to talk about, and we've got some issues to delve into. But before we delve into those issues, we are going to get this set up here, and we are going to go through this PowerPoint. Are you able to see this, Daniel?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, if you're able to see it, then I assume everybody else is able to see it. That is the assumption I am going off of. So let's start with the Yes on 2 campaign. So for those who don't know, there will be 2 questions on the ballot this fall. The first one deals with the right to repair on automobiles, and the second one deals with the way in which voters vote, or simply put, ranked choice voting. Someone asked the question, well, what is ranked choice voting? But before we get into that, this is the breakdown of how we're going to go into this. We're going to go into who we are, the plurality voting problem, ranked choice voting as a solution, who supports Yes on 2 and ranked choice voting, and how we can win next month. All right, so the Yes on 2 campaign, who we are. We are a nonpartisan, citizen-organized ballot campaign to bring ranked choice voting to Massachusetts. We are supported by Democrats, Republicans, and independents from across the political spectrum. Our volunteers certified 128 and 780,000 signatures, largest signature campaign in Massachusetts history. First citizen initiated electronic signature drive in U.S. history. So history was made, y'all. In July, Secretary William Galvin approved the question for November 3rd ballot, which will be question 2. So what is it? What are we talking about here? Well, I'm really so glad you asked. So again, we'll have the ballot, you'll have the presidential candidate, you'll have the U.S. Senate candidate, the U.S. Senate, Senator Markey and the Republican challenger. And then you'll see 2 questions. And again, we mentioned that a little earlier, but no need for us to be repetitive, but we want to delve deeper into question 2. So a Yes on 2 vote support the use of ranked choice voting for primary and general election for the state and federal offices beginning in 2022, not including presidential and municipal elections. So we must understand that the frequency of non-majority outcomes in 3+ candidate races in Massachusetts from 1998 to 2018. We see that 41% are winners or win with less than the majority. And again, I'll leave that chart just for a second for you to digest. As we see the various types of races that ranked choice voting would impact, it would impact the U.S. Senate, U.S. House, and statewide offices: governor, lieutenant governor, governor's council, treasurer, audit, secretary of state, attorney general, state senate, state representative, district attorney, sheriff. It would not affect local municipalities because there's a clause written in the state constitution and a charter where municipalities can choose their own form of voting. However, cities like Cambridge have been using it since the 50s, the 40s, and the 50s. And East Hampton and Northampton have just adopted ranked choice voting within the last 6 months, 3 months. And they will be using ranked choice voting moving forward for their own citywide elections. So we understand that cities have been using this for a while. And Australia and Ireland have been using this for over 100 years, this form of voting, ranked choice voting. So we understand that this method is tried and true in New York City, and I'll get into the New York City in just a second. But so there's some longevity, there's some history with this form of voting. So the way plurality voting, for those who don't know, plurality voting is the system that we currently use. The winner of an election is the person with the most votes. But there's some problems with this. The plurality system or plurality voting fails to guarantee a majority of winners. It creates spoilers that can alter the election outcomes. It discourages candidates from running. It limits our choices in the voting booth. It rewards negative campaigning and yields voter apathy. And we'll begin to unpack some of this as we go along in this presentation. But I just want to kind of highlight the 6 things that is wrong, and there's more, but 6 things that is wrong with our current plurality system. Somebody asked a question. Someone may have been thinking. Someone asked a question to themselves and may have been thinking, well, what is ranked choice voting? I hear you talking about, ranked choice voting, and this, okay, well, what is it? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Ranked choice voting allows you the option to rank your candidate. So instead of going to the booth and just picking one candidate per race, you can actually rank them in the order that you like. Because we understand that people are more complicated than just fitting in a box. People are diverse, dynamic, and we are dynamic and diverse in our thinking. And sometimes in an election, we might like more than one candidate. But because of the plurality system and the system that we have, we can only vote for one. So, ranked choice voting. Instead of just voting for one candidate, a voter can rank as many candidates as they wish in order to In order to win the election, the candidate must earn over 50% from the voters, and that's critical. I mentioned, let me go back, y'all. Let me show you something. I mentioned this chart here, that voters, that 41% of winners won with less than a majority. So what a ranked choice voting would do is it would ensure that the majority of voters' voices are heard. So for an example, if someone gets over 50% in a 5-candidate race or a 6-candidate race, then flatly outright that person is declared the winner. Just like in today's election, no issues. But oftentimes, people and races and winners in the plurality system do not get more than 50%. So in that particular case, it would go to the next round, second round. The lowest vote getter from the first round, let's say it's 5 candidates, A, B, C, D, and E. If E is the lowest vote getter, then E will be eliminated, and then it will go to the second round, with candidate A, B, C, and D. The voters that voted for candidate E as their first choice, that won't count. But then it counted, but because E is eliminated, the calculating system will go to the second choice. Now, if a voter picks E as all their choices, and by the way, the amount of choices you have depends on how many people in the race. If there's 5 people in the race, you have 5 choices. If there's 6 people in the race, you have 6 choices. If there's 10 people, you have 10 choices. So the choices are determined by how many candidates are running. If it's 4 people, then you have 4 choices. So if a person picks one candidate, in all 4 of their preferences, that's completely fine. However, if that person is eliminated in the first round or second round or whatever round, the counting continues to go until there's a winner with over 50%. So if that person is eliminated, then that person, a voter casts a circles that person in for every round, then their vote will count for that person, but that person is eliminated. Because that person is eliminated, that person, the votes don't get thrown away, and the votes still go with that individual, but he or she is the lowest vote getter. So if candidate E is the lowest vote getter in an election of 5 people, then again, the voter's next choice, and the calculating will begin again. People do not have to go to the polls again. You don't have to go to the polls one time, just like we do now. And if no one gets 50% in that second round of the votes total, then we go to a third round. And the lowest vote getter in the second round is eliminated. And so on and so on until the candidate declared the winner with 50% of support, over 50% support. All right, so let's make this easy, y'all. So we have a governor, hypothetical, right? And you pick one candidate. That's the current system. Barbara Berg is a hypothetical candidate. So that's in the plurality system. Here in ranked choice voting, so for some of our visual learners, you see that you can rank your candidates in the orders of your preference. So this is one voter's card. You know, they have Charlie Chang as their first choice. They have Barbara Berg as their second. They have David Domingo as their third, and they have Abby as their fourth. So this is how it would look, the ballot. And this is different than the plurality. And we explained earlier that if a vote getter, so if Charlie Chang is the lowest vote getter in the first round, and this is their first pick of their voter, then the second round would be calculated between Barbara, Abby, and David, and that voter that voted first round for Chang, for Charlie, that's it, their vote would go to Barbara, and et cetera, et cetera. So we see that until a person is only declared a winner until they have, or only if they have over 50%. And we see it as hypothetical example that Barbara has over 50%. But what we're currently seeing in our elections is, and we saw earlier that the statistic from 98 to 2018 is 41% of statewide offices winners were won with less than 50% of the vote, because you have a situation like this. So we see that no one is the declared winner. We have, because no one has over 50%. And that's the first round. But y'all see that the lowest vote getter is Charlie Chang. We would go to the second round, and then the vote totals get a little higher because people's second vote would count. Because look, at first Abby has 28, now Abby has 33, but Barbara is in the lead with 38% in the second round. Then we go to third round, and then Abby is the winner because Abby has 56% of the vote. We won't break yet for questions. Benefits of ranked choice voting. I'm going to explain what a spoiler is in a little bit, but you don't have to worry about voting for a spoiler. It allows voters to express true preferences. You rank as many or as few candidates as you like. It gives more choice and stronger voice to voters. And we see our elections can improve. Right? Winners would have majority support. There'd be no concerns about vote splitting. Fresh voices have a chance to compete. Incentives to find common ground and less negativity. Let me put a pin and park right there for a second. We often see in our elections, folks, and it can get real nasty, it can get real mean, a lot of mudslinging, and a lot of scandals, and a lot of tearing down, verbally attacking each other. We can just look at the presidential race and see that. Well, if ranked choice voting was implemented, then it will bring more civility in place. Check this out. Because if I'm a candidate, or you're a candidate, and you want to appeal to the base of your opponent, then attacking your opponent will likely turn you off from their base, because you may not be that candidate, the opponent's first choice in their base, but you might be their second choice. So the likelihood of you not attacking them because you want to try to win some support from their base increases dramatically, which would reduce the mudslinging, and reduce the vitriol, and reduce the meanness in politics. These are some of our co-chairs, and we've got more. Jesse Marmel is also a new co-chair, and we've got a few more. These are just some. David Duvall Patrick. We see some here, some people here. You know, and I mentioned we have support from Republicans, governors. We'll go over some of those names. We have a report from the Republicans, Democrats, Independents, because this is a nonpartisan issue. So these are some of the supporters, and it has grown, but I'll give you a second to look at this list. And statewide, we have Attorney General Maura Healey, Secretary Bill Gallagher, and this list continues to grow. So if you like this campaign, you want to get involved, you can endorse the campaign. I'll leave this up for a second. You want a long time, the information is right there. And I can send out information to the folks at the library, and they can send out this information to everyone that registered. All right, so we can break into questions. So I can turn this back over to you, Daniel, and we can break into questions. Now you're on mute.
Good catch. Thank you, Reverend Walker. So real quick, I want to back up to the process just to, in the event that there's any confusion, in the event of a round two, when a candidate is eliminated, the only votes being recounted or retallied, if you will, are those of the eliminated candidate, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so A through D, candidate D gets eliminated. Only candidate D's choice 2 are being redistributed to the remaining candidates, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I was curious about that, and I had some prepared questions I was just going to walk through in the event, just kind of to strengthen the argument for choice 2 in terms of any potential concerns, if you will, from the public. Based on an article that you did recently, kind of some opponents of the question are concerned about public education about how the ranked choice voting would work and whether or not ballots and the counting of ballots would be more expensive. The adding the multitude of candidates that the new system would bring, the ability for the public to vet that multitude of candidates, and whether or not there's a concern that the system could actually produce a true majority. Just kind of touch and go on some of those. So basically,
are you questions? Can we
so starting off, so are you worried about disseminating how the system would work to the general public?
Yeah, so if this were to pass, and we believe it will, it will get implemented in 2022, and then the Secretary's office would do a voter education to educate voters on how the new process, what the new process is, how it works, etc. And we would have about almost 2 years to the Secretary's office would have an opportunity to educate voters across the Bay State. So that's the first question about education. Secretary Gallagher and his office will be in charge of informing and educating and elucidating ranked choice voting.
Okay. Is there a concern in terms of cost? The extra steps in the process and the labor hours that would generate?
So, I'm going to pull that up. So there actually wouldn't be any additional cost. And we know that we know that the systems will be upgraded, and there's a reserve of federal money that the state can tap into to upgrade the computer systems to be able to do this. So there would not necessarily be any additional or poll workers working any extra shift, probably, or things of that nature. So we don't foresee that there will be an additional burden
Okay.
in terms of cost.
Okay. And then real quick, in terms of concerns of the potential hypothetical where a true 50% just could not be reached due to some mathematical anomaly.
We've never seen that happen.
Okay.
We've not seen that happen. And at 50%, even if it's among two, 50% will be reached.
Okay. And then going into the idea of a majority, why does the campaign for question 2 feel the importance of a majority vote versus the minority vote? So what's the importance of hitting that 50% threshold?
50% over, because well, the importance is, and I have some more slides that we will go, that we added just to, that we're going to talk about a little bit.
By all means, you can continue and we can come back.
Yes. All right. These are just some places where it's currently used. The city of New York is now using it. So I just want to give people a second to see where it is currently used in America. And Maine, the state of Maine passed it. And the state of Maine has the first state to use ranked choice voting for statewide races and the presidential. So we will go into this here. This is just an example of a brokenness of the system. Mayor recall in 2019, 39% of people recalled the mayor in that first ballot question, and then 39%. And this is 35% rather. So 61% wanted to recall and to get the mayor out because of corruption and fraud. Then there was a race, and on that same ballot, he got 35%, and he was the winner by 1%. So you see that 69% or 61% recalled him, and saying that we need a new mayor, and then 35% voted him back in. So this is an example of brokenness. So we can go back to some more questions. And I may show another slide or two, but yes, we can go back to more questions. Oh, actually, before we do that, I wanted to say what the spoiler effect was. So if we remember the presidential race, we remember, in 2000 between George Bush, Al Gore, and Ralph Nader. So Bush got 48.85% of the vote. Gore got 48.84% of the vote, and then Nader got 1.64% of the vote. There was an exit poll that said that if voters were given the opportunity to vote a second choice, a lot of Nader folks would have voted for Gore, because I believe in Florida, when it was a recount, it was only a 537 vote difference. And obviously, if ranked choice voting was implemented, Gore would have won conceivably, and we would perhaps have had a different response in terms of war on Iraq, etc. So it certainly could have dramatically changed the course of the country's history. So I want to put a pin right there. So Ralph Nader will be looked at as a spoiler candidate. So that's what I wanted to point out. Okay, back to you, Daniel.
Okay. No, that's a perfect segue into the idea of a spoiler candidate, given that the exit poll is interesting because the idea of a spoiler candidate depends on who loses, right? And who wins, because if you had A, B, and C, and A wins by 45%, given the way the constitutions, whether it be the state of Massachusetts or the federal constitution, it's by most votes. And so, some opponents may feel that they did their obligation and they would feel that they should win, and that C is not a spoiler at all, and that C got the votes that they wanted. But the exit poll is interesting, that if the public were given a second option, that they would indeed go to B. That's interesting. But to move on from that really brings up the idea of the majority versus that minority vote, and ranked choice voting would form a supermajority, if you will. Are you worried about speak to the people who may fall into a minority vote that are afraid that ranked choice voting would essentially, for the foreseeable future, cancel out their chance to win ever, especially in a country defined by a two-party system?
Well, actually, ranked choice voting would even the playing field. Because the way in which it would even the playing field, it doesn't necessarily cater to Democrats or Republicans, because it would keep everyone on the same level, and it would take big money interests out, for an example. So big money interests would no longer be able to dictate, the winner in a particular election. So for those who are concerned that ranked choice voting would not give a third party or someone who runs as an independent, actually this is that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to even the playing field, and also it would allow an opportunity for candidates to run on a platform that they so desire. They don't necessarily have to run on a two-party system platform. They can run on a platform that they would like. And also, ranked choice voting would allow that no votes are wasted. Because with ranked choice voting, you never feel that your vote is wasted. If your favorite candidate can't win, your vote is instantly counted for your second or your third choice. And also, it's a simple way to vote. Ranked choice voting is simple, fair, and easy. On your ballot, you can, as we mentioned, you can just vote for one candidate you like you always have, or you can have an option to rank your first choice, second choice, and third choice. And ultimately, Daniel, I believe that ranked choice voting puts the power where it belongs, with the people. Because ranked choice voting strips away the power of special interests, big money donors, and Republicans, and the most extreme partisan voters. Extreme partisan voters. And ranked choice voting will make our government more representative of our diversity of Massachusetts across all age, race, and gender. This reform can help us bring us together instead of dividing us, because we know that politics is dividing because of the nasty rhetoric, because of the meanness, because of the issues that it comes with. And also, I want to point out that this is nonpartisan. Ranked choice voting is entirely a nonpartisan reform. That's why this campaign has gained endorsement from across the political spectrum in Massachusetts, as pointed out earlier. Ranked choice candidates will have to rely on a majority of support and incentivize candidates to engage with larger audiences of voters rather than just their base. In fact, it is this first past the post system that encourages greater partisan division in our electoral politics, leaving people who feel left out of the left versus right reality of our modern politics. And with more choice and more voice, ranked choice voting can engage people who feel that they're left out, people who feel that they're isolated, who feel marginalized. And simply put, someone asked a question about turnout. In terms of turnout, it is well documented that the turnout for runoff elections is abysmal. The evidence showed no correlation between ranked choice voting and lower voter turnout for general elections. And in fact, and we can share this if folks would like it, a study from the University of Missouri, Illinois, St. Louis, showed that ranked choice voting in local elections had limited impact on turnout, and that's when compared to the primary and runoff elections that they replaced. Ranked choice voting general elections are actually associated with a 10-point increase in voter participation. Someone asked the cost, and now you asked the cost earlier. I'm going to delve right back into that, if that's all right.
Please.
Ranked choice voting added just $110,000 for Maine's 2008 primary election, plus runoff elections and associated costs are effectively made obsolete in the ranked choice voting system. For an example, before Maine enacted ranked choice voting, before they enacted ranked choice voting in 2019, New York City had a 2009 primary runoff election to the tune of $15 million, with fewer than 8% of the city's enrolled Democrats even showing up to the polls. Democracy thrives with a stronger voter turnout, and our current system does not encourage strong turnout, especially when a runoff is needed. And then, someone else asked the question, what about communities of color? Well, candidates of color have won more seats in their cities where they have implemented ranked choice voting. An analysis for elections for 53 seats in diverse Bay Area cities, San Francisco, San Alejandro, Oakland, and Berkeley, demonstrated an increase in election rates for candidates of color in all types of districts, whether majority or white, majority minority, or plurality white. In majority white districts, elections of candidates of color increased by 9 percentage points. In a majority of minority districts, it increased by 17 percentage points. In plurality white districts, it increased by 24 percentage points. And then I want to address another point you made, or you asked Daniel. Would ranked choice voting give an advantage to Democrats or Republicans? Well, nothing about ranked choice voting inherently favors one party or political philosophy. The system is entirely party blind. Ranked choice voting has been adopted in both red and blue jurisdictions. For an example, it has been adopted in 4 cities in California, Bay State area. We mentioned some earlier: San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, San Alejandro, as well as adopted in 2 cities in Utah, Payson and Vineyard. In 2008, in the 2008 presidential election, both Republican and Democratic nominees had gone on record supporting ranked choice voting. John McCain reported a statement in favor of Ballot initiative for ranked choice voting in Alaska in 2002. Then Barack Obama, soon to become President Barack Obama, introduced a bill as a state senator also in 2002 to conduct Illinois congressional primary elections by ranked choice voting. So we see that some additional benefits of what our ranked choice voting will do.
Thank you, Reverend. Talking about unforeseen consequences, I know some studies have been done, and so much the general consensus is a lot of the unforeseens are just unknown because it's been little practice here in the US, although you did highlight it's been happening in Europe for a while now. Do you see a minority vote apathy if, say, in the state of Massachusetts, where one party might outnumber the other, they can do the math themselves, and they see that if B may not win outright the first round, but they know B is going to get C's votes, so voters that would have voted for A just aren't going to show up.
What is the question again?
So,
exactly.
In the state of Massachusetts, you have candidate A, B, and C. Candidate B represents the predominant party within the state. So the people that would have voted for the minority party, candidate A, would have voter apathy because they feel like candidate C, once eliminated, B is going to get those votes, forming a supermajority. Could you see that being an unforeseen consequence?
Not necessarily. So your question, I'm trying to really zone in on what the question is. So your question is, will voter apathy happen because of ranked choice voting?
Yes, in a respective state, because in our country, states are typically dominated by one party or the other. And so in your Ralph Nader example, Gore would have gotten Nader's votes if there would have been ranked choice voting at that time. And if the general public had the consensus at that time that Nader's votes would have gone to Gore, if that would have been implemented in the first place, before the election, leading up to the election, would Bush voters had just thrown up the white flag and not even tried, because they would have felt one side would have had a supermajority, maybe not in the first round, but in the second round. It was inevitable, if you will.
That I don't have an answer to, because like you said, it's an unforeseen consequence. I don't think so. But I mean, studies have not shown that.
Exactly. From what I've read, the studies haven't got there yet. I find that interesting, but I do want to highlight to that point. The idea of the spoiler is arbitrary in nature, right? It can be that candidate C. So in the last hypothetical, Nader, in the last election, you had the Green Party. Exit polls might show a preference, but you really don't know how C would have been distributed if it would have been allowed in the forehand. You really just don't know until it happens and a trend can be developed. I really appreciate your time, Reverend. I got one more question for you, and probably the biggest one that may be a concern for question 2. Let's say it passes or gets voted to move forward, if you will. With the Massachusetts State's Constitution and its wording, phrasing, and I quote, having the highest number of votes is the winner. Do you see question 2 dead out the gates in the court?
The question really doesn't violate the Constitution. That's what we're talking about, right?
Correct.
No, because the Constitution does not include anything about methods of election for all federal, state, and local races.
Okay.
As long as voting method is not discriminatory and meets some fundamental test, it is considered constitutional. When challenged in the court, RCV has been upheld, including by the federal district court in Maine and an ununanimous 3-judge panel, the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Okay.
Daniel, I actually have a question, or just a thought, and I don't know, Reverend Vernon, if you know this, but I can't remember where I read this, but Nader was running not because he actually thought he would become president, but because he wanted to get the Green Party on the ballot. And if we were able to do this federally, or maybe in some states where there isn't like a Rainbow Party or a Green Party or an alternative party, would ranked choice voting help in that scenario? So for instance, if I believe the Green Party should be a third party in the US, but I want to vote Democrat, I'd be able to vote Nader, but also a second choice Al Gore. And so Nader gets his points for getting the Green Party recognition, but then my vote as a minority vote would eventually go to Al Gore as my second choice. I don't know if that makes sense.
Is there a question associated with that?
I guess something I've been thinking about, and you already touched about this, is like, would this allow more, I mean, we are seeing more diversity in our candidates, but would this allow more minorities and more women and more people to end up winning when people are like, oh, well, I'll just vote for this one because it's safe, when it's really this one that is my conscience is telling me to vote for?
Oh, absolutely, because ranked choice voting has an intended consequence and has been proven to encourage candidates of color and women candidates to run for office.
Mhm. Yeah.
Reverend, do you see new political parties forming as a result of let's hypothetical ranked choice voting goes national? Could you see new parties being formed? You know, just different ideologies being incentivized to form new parties because they feel that the individual vote now has more power due to the multitude of levels it can go through.
That is possible. I guess we have to wait and see.
Right. Do you have anything else, Janet?
I think you answered everything. I really love the idea, and we'll see if it happens, but the idea of making elections less volatile. So you actually get more information on how people stand, because then you want to know what your second choice is. So you might have a favorite, and then but you really want to be educated on who everyone else is. So you are educated in your second choice, because that has a lot of potential. And there's so much more incentive for everyone to play nice and be civil, because if you tear someone down, you could be losing eventually in the second round or third round, losing votes. So that's something I hadn't thought of, and I think is really, we talk a lot about money in politics, and I think it's a way to fight that without money, but fight with just forcing people to be nice, because they'll lose potential votes. Yeah.
Well, it puts more earnest on the candidate to actually speak through policy as opposed to mudslinging. Right.
And try to rally up a base to participate in mudslinging and intimidation and spreading vitriol and misinformation. These things are likely to decrease because of RCV.
Right. Well, Reverend, those are the questions I have for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to speak on, or anything else that you had? I really appreciate your time tonight.
Oh, likewise, yes. For all those who are listening, well, first of all, it's been a pleasure to be here. And I have just been equal happy to participate in the conversation with you all. But yes, please, we want you to vote yes on two. Go to our we can give you our website, our name in just a second. So if you like more information, please go to our website, www.yeson2rcv.com. Once again, I'll mention www.yeson2rcv.com. And then you can see, we also have the Boston Globe's editorial endorsement. So there's a lot of people who endorse this. The campaign has a lot of momentum, but we need your help. We want you to vote. Early voting starts tomorrow. Vote. Get out and vote. Despite what those who are in top leadership tell you about our democracy and mail-in vote fraud, go out and vote. Let your voice be heard. Vote. Because this is a consequential election, and we cannot afford to sit this out for the climate, for social justice, for economical justice, for racial justice. We can't afford to sit this one out, y'all. We can't sit on the sideline. We can't sit on the sidelines with this. We can't. It would be disastrous if we sit on the seat and do nothing, whistle to the tune and do less. We gotta get out and vote and make sure your family and friends have a plan to vote.
Thank you, Reverend, and I second that. And thank you for your time. If nothing else, look forward to seeing you next week, and God bless, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
All right, well, blessings to you, and we will do this again.